For great ideas and practical tools you can start using tomorrow to grow your business and separate you from the competition, you've come to the right place. If you're into B2B marketing and sales, then welcome to the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast. With over 60 and counting total years in the trenches of businesses small and large, they have a plethora of knowledge and experience that generate you more leads, capture more clients, ring up more sales. Well, doggone it, just make you more money. How about that? Always thought-provoking, yet dubiously entertaining. Please welcome to their respective microphones across 3 time zones, your co-ringmasters, the Dave Loomis, and not the rock star, Steve Miller.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast. And this is Dave Loomis, also known as The Voice, but my co-host is not with us today. It is a solo version, but I am actually not solo. I'm joined with a really interesting person who I've known for some time, Peter Boatwright. Peter is the Marketing and New Products faculty member, or a Marketing and New Products faculty member at the Tepper School of Business at Carnegie Mellon. And he also is the director of the Integrated Innovation Institute there. He's the author of a couple of books, and that's probably how we first got introduced, because I originally read The Design of Things to Come, which was a great book, co-authored by Craig Vogel and Jonathan Kagan. And then Peter teamed up with Jonathan Kagan again to create this book, which I love. It has love in the title, Built to Love, Creating Products That Captivate Customers. This had a big influence on me personally. And Jonathan Kagan, just to note, is in the engineering school at Carnegie Mellon. And, one of the things that I always loved about their work, Peter and Jonathan's together, is that it merged marketing and engineering thinking, and was probably pretty on the early stages of the design thinking sort of methodology. So with that, I will welcome Peter to our podcast. Hello, Peter.
Well, thank you, Dave. I really appreciate your inviting me to join you today.
Thank you. And, we keep this to, maybe half an hour at the most usually. And as many of the listeners know, we tend to ask pretty open-ended questions and just have casual conversations about things, and just to sort of get in the minds of our guests and what happens there and their experience. So I'm going to start, Peter, with an extremely open-ended question. It has to do with current trends in marketing, and a lot has changed in the last few years, and even few months, you might argue. But what would you say, from your point of view, from where you sit and who you see and the work that you do, what would you say is one or a couple of sort of the most important and impactful trends that you're seeing in marketing these days?
Well, I don't think it would be a terrible surprise to say that it's open AI or generative AI or the chat GPT versions. We're still at the very beginning of where this can head. You hear all sorts of forecasts of where this could go. And of course, we don't know, but the capabilities you can start to forecast and see that this is something that really could be quite useful. So I've experimented, like many people, with it, and I just find it helpful because, let's say I'm composing an email about whatever the topic. I tell it the topic, it gives me the framework. It writes my email. Now it makes up some stuff, but what I have to do is go in and edit. Well, some people have critiqued it that it's making up stuff, but it has to. What I love is that now I don't have to spend my brain waves on, we'll call it the easy stuff, the framework that needs to go there anyway. And I can really think more diligently about some specific pieces that I want to get across, some specific wording. And I've really only used the text-based, generative kinds of engines. And I'm not creating art and some other artifacts
Or
at this
code.
point.
Are you creating code or anything
I'm
yet?
not creating code. So, I mean, but we think about this more broadly that, let's go back. When I was young, calculators felt new. I
Right,
don't know if they
right.
were new,
Yeah,
but they felt new.
absolutely right. And people said, "Oh, no, you shouldn't use a calculator. That's cheating."
That's right. But now, we don't have to spend our time and all that effort on some parts that we don't need to spend our time on. We can put our cognitive effort more creatively or more productively learning other aspects. And so I think here in a workplace or here in a creativity context, why spend when a computer can, make things faster for me, why not use it? And now, of course, the risk that many people are worried about is that, always there's this human tendency to be lazy. And we accept the answer that we think is good enough when no, it really may not be good enough. So yes, these issues, they're there. I don't want to act like they're not there, but the capability, the productivity, the excitement is. Let's think about it this way. There's the robot that can replace part of a human job. Let's say that's an awfully boring job, repetitive, or maybe it's bad for somebody. It's dangerous.
Right, exactly. Dangerous,
So,
or even repetitive stress syndrome,
right.
and all that. So yeah, not ideal.
So if we can give that human, and that the trick here is to find that, a job for that not replace, not it may create unemployment, but find a job that person would enjoy all the more, or be more, use their skills or grow their skills, not just say, all right, you are what you are. We're not going to grow. You're not going to learn. I think the same thing here is that we could say white collar work could be all the more enjoyable because you're not spending your time with the repetitive kinds of aspects of whether it's composing emails or doing something else. It's the creative. It really can use part of that human element that we enjoy of thinking about what's next and what's possible.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I was at an AI conference, a little sort of session last week or week before last, and someone used the term white collar automation. And, we've had it, we really already have it with, Excel and Word and email and all those sort of things are still are white collar automation. But this is really not replacing, but augmenting, I would say, some real tasks. When you think about marketing itself and the different sort of work streams that are necessary for that, what are some application areas aside from, just from your own personal standpoint and helping you with your job or, sort of menial tasks and things like that? What are some marketing things that you think or that you've even heard about that AI might be able to assist with?
What I've really heard about is generating variations on copy. So that could be text copy. It could be some other kind of copy. Just getting some possibilities out there. What that allows the human to do is to kind of mix and match, choose, evaluate. Some of these, we'll call them higher order skills that we all have, but we want to exercise. And then the converse of that would be some places where I don't think the computer's going to be ready for is any kind of strategic. So if we're thinking, marketing, it's the art about change, because in a competitive situation, you're looking for what's not necessarily being done or what you can do different from everybody else. And so if the computer's looking at patterns, they're looking at the computer's looking at what's already done, what's standard, what's normal. And as marketers, we're always looking to get attention. If it's in the awareness creation, or strategically, how can we differentiate? So
That's
we're
really
always,
fascinating. Yes, true, exactly. So right now, it might not be ready to tell us what to do differently,
yeah.
because it's looking at patterns to say what's sort of the regular sort of operational method or common practice.
So research is a great example. Give me market research on da 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 da. It can give you what it can find and whatever data it has access to, and that's great to quickly get that material, and you can be more and more specific or change your questions. So it's a glorified search. Internet search would be one way to use this. But what do I do now that I've got the research? That's the part that's the human element. And so you're not spending your time gathering information, you're spending your time evaluating, synthesizing, deciding what to
Yeah,
do with
that makes a
information.
lot of sense. Now, of course, what's so interesting about this, and I'll call it a phenomenon, is that until November of last year, depending on when you're listening to the recording of this podcast, it's May of 2023 when we record this. So November of 2022, around Thanksgiving holiday, is when the world had access to Chat GPT and OpenAI for the first time. And, all the statistics say that it's the fastest adoption of any technology in human history, which is kind of an amazing statistic. So, we're sitting here talking about like what we've heard and what we've done and experimented with ourselves, between ourselves, and we're reading articles and studying things, but who knows where exactly this is going to go, either for on the positive side of things or the nefarious side of things, I suppose. There's benefits and risks of this. Do you see any risks that concern you when it comes to either marketing or just the technology itself?
Well, I think the general risk is poor decisions, and maybe those would be dangerous decisions at times. But to the extent that it's telling us what to do and we're obeying it, we'll even take something we're all familiar with, mapping software. It's generally really good. So Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze or whatever you use, but it's always a good idea to evaluate and look to see, is that sending you where you think you should go? There are times where there's a couple of streets with the same name. Pittsburgh has a variety of localities, municipalities, and as I looked at trying to take my son to soccer, no, that must not be the right Third Avenue.
That's interesting. So do you blindly follow? I actually have a Pittsburgh mapping story, which is kind of funny, I suppose, in that I was southeast of Pittsburgh, and I was trying to get to Falling Water, which is Frank Lloyd Wright's house, as you know, which you've probably been to. And I was just following the map, and it actually sent me into like a mountain range on the other side of Falling Water. And so I was on dirt roads and going into a valley, literally in the middle of nowhere. And I actually had to stop at someone's house, and, thank goodness they didn't think I was like a crazy person, but I did get out of there, but I felt like, what just happened? And it sort of took the most direct route, I guess. So with AI, I suppose that's such a great point, is that, we shouldn't be just like relying on it blindly.
Right. And the capability is for it to make decisions so we don't have to make decisions. One that's not really generative AI, that an example that I've enjoyed hearing somebody else talk about is you're turning on your sprinkler system for your house. If it's checking forecasts and it's testing the dryness of your soil, it being the technology, well, then it can turn on your home, watering system at the right times, not right before a rain is about to happen or probably going to happen. And it also could use statistics to say, well, I know rain's been forecast every night for a while, but it hasn't. And I know rain's forecast tonight, but just statistically, it may or may not rain. I'm going to go ahead and water anyway. So, some of these things, it's fine with me. There's really no risk if it's turning on my water sprinklers or not. But other aspects, there could be danger. Somebody joked about the robot getting the newspaper at all costs, and ripping it away from the dog and harming the dog who also has the paper, because the instruction set is get that newspaper and deliver
Right. These
to me
are
at all costs.
moral questions. And
Right.
I've heard a friend of mine said their son is working at one of the startups, and they're addressing moral questions for self-driving cars that need to be asked. For instance, the car has to make a decision about either to kill a pedestrian or run the car into a tree and risk killing the occupants of the car. Which does it choose? Because there isn't an alternative. Unfortunately, something happened and
Right.
it didn't see it. So these are tough questions. By the way, I got a washing machine delivered this morning, and the promotion or the specs of it say that it has AI built into it that will sense how dirty the clothes are, what type of fabric and the weight, and then adjust the heat and other things accordingly to what it finds. Because that was a real problem that that we had. I was trying to determine those things. No, it's
so that's
great.
the capability, is that it's making
Sure.
decisions, and in many, many, many cases, maybe most cases, that's excellent, and that's where a lot of the where the promise and the benefit will be. But we need to be aware and awake to the unusual cases,
Sure.
instead of sleepy about the unusual cases.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I can't say I'm surprised that was the answer to the question about sort of current trends. But let me ask you another question, which is almost the flip side of that, which is, regardless of new technologies or the changing world we live in or anything like that, there's a few core principles of marketing that probably transcend those that always should be considered. What do you think a couple of those are, and why do they transcend, all these things that are changing around us?
I think one of the transcendent principles is that it's about people. So when you're marketing to people. Your products and services are experienced by people. It's repaired by a person, delivered by a person. Even if it's a pet product and it's for your pet, well, it's the pet parent, the owner, who is really buying, purchasing, using to a great extent. And I bring that up because I know it's obvious. And yet, when we are thinking about new products, when we're thinking about messaging, so often inside our companies, we're accustomed to the way we've done things. We're thinking about our product portfolio. We begin to think about the company's objectives. I need to grow my sales. How do I grow sales? Well, maybe I can fill in a gap in my product line. I'm thinking about my needs. Oh, I need to have more services. I've got my products and it's a service economy. What service can I do? A greater percentage of my portfolio should be from service revenues, et cetera. Well, no, the only reason your service is going to be used is that it's benefiting somebody who's going to be the user, experience, or buyer. And so the starting point really needs to be about what do they want outside. And I know sitting in a classroom or talking in a conference room or on a podcast, these are platitudes that are kind of well recognized. It's the doing it. People are busy, workers are busy, employees are busy. And so we've already got managing our existing lives, our existing tasks fills our time. So to take that extra effort to get outside of my own world and really dive deep into a buyer's world, a potential buyer's world, a customer's world, in a way to see what we're not doing for them yet and could. That's a lot of effort, and it takes some skill. It takes some analysis. It's not just checking a box. Oh, I got talked. I asked somebody some questions. I met with someone.
Right.
So
Right. Oh, yeah, that's done. Yeah. Or, take a survey on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about this, or what are your needs? Yeah. It takes something much different. Questioning, getting out there, seeing things from their perspective, observation. Why'd you do
right.
that? I see you're doing that. What's that all about? I think a lot of times, end users of anything actually don't know they have a problem necessarily, because they're just so used to doing things a certain way. I recall in your book, Built to Love, a project with Navistar with 18-wheel with big trucks, over the road trucks, where if I'm not mistaken, you and a team looked at the cabs of those trucks, and can you say, like, how does that example fit with what you just said about sort of getting out there and understanding a customer? Because
Right.
I really love that, and I think about that example all the time.
I was down in remote Honduras last year. Long story why I was there. We don't need to go there, but I saw one of these trucks out in the middle of Honduras and was really surprised, because this is a prestige truck. It's a very expensive truck, but it's getting around the globe. We can say that. But back
One of
up
the trucks that you actually helped
right,
design.
right,
Oh my
right.
gosh, that is wild. That's great. So what did that entail?
So that truck, it's really, again, studying people, but people in a context. People are so complicated. There's a lot of aspects here in the context of trucking. One thing that we found is it's not just the business tool. It is a business tool. It's important to move product efficiently and cost effectively, and to have that vehicle be durable and not break down. All these mechanical aspects, functional aspects. At the same time, we'll go to owner operators. Many drivers own their trucks or own a small fleet of trucks. They are businessmen, business people. And something that we found in our research is that they felt that society didn't value them like a business person, a CEO would be valued, or a product manager would be valued. They're a truck driver, and that was a different echelon in society. So there's this hunger, this need to be recognized as successful. There's a hunger for, pride in my success. And so there's an opportunity in the product to not just be functional, effective as a business tool, but showcase success. To say, look at me, I've made it. So that's, and on the market at that time, as we studied it, there were some look at me kinds of trucks, but they weren't necessarily smart business tools. So from an aerodynamic viewpoint, they're catching wind. They have lots of chrome and flat areas that were showy, but they weren't necessarily they would not be the smartest business tool. There were others that were great business tools, but they were unexciting to truckers. So that was the genesis of the idea. We work mainly in the interior of the truck, and in the interior, it's thinking about the cabin of your private jet. Now, really, kind of a feeling of I've made it a success. And we found, and just doing our due diligence, we found a husband-wife couple who put a wood floor in the back, kind of in their truck, in their living space. They installed it themselves. So we started to get some ideas from just looking at what people were doing,
That's
say,
fascinating.
in the live.
So it's a home office, basically, because, I think that one of the things that truckers are constantly doing is, depending on whether they're independent or they work for an actual company, either way, they're constantly, checking their computer for the next route and on-time delivery and all sorts of different things, and in some cases even bidding on the next job, and then trying to minimize deadheading so that they're maximizing utilization and all these things. Not to mention the fact that it's also their home and they live in it. I mean, it's like, so that's a lot of things, right?
So there's a lot of function: living room, bedroom, office, all right, kitchen, dining room. So there's that one little space back there. It has a lot of function. Where the success of this truck, I believe, came from recognizing this pride. I want to feel that I've made it. And so making that in a more higher end interior, and the exterior of this is drop dead gorgeous. I really am impressed with the wasn't involved in the way this looked, and it was also smart. It's the most aerodynamic truck on the planet. They put it in wind tunnels. Wind comes from all directions, so it was very thoughtful. But it struck a nerve. So when they unveiled this truck at they did it at a car show, and I believe it was 2008, if I have my dates correct, when they unveiled this. They had truckers lined up for this truck. And they were lined up to see the truck, but also to get a tattoo. Not a kid's tattoo that washes off. This is a permanent tattoo that they're branding themselves with. Now, we've seen Harley tattoos or other kinds of tattoos, but I would wager that most people who get a Harley tattoo have driven a Harley if they don't own one. Nobody owned this truck yet. Nobody had driven this truck yet, but it resonated so deeply with this community that they were branding themselves for life, that they're either with the grill of this truck or with the logo of this truck.
Well,
so
that's cool.
It's that resonance.
The brand was Navistar at the time. Is that still the brand name that is associated with the truck?
So the corporate brand is Navistar. This truck's brand was Lone Star.
Lone Star. Gotcha. Right. Which is a great name too. And kind of, you think about the West and sort of a persona that might go along with that. That's terrific. So would you have been able to do anything that you did or make any of the recommendations you did if you had not actually gotten out into the field and observed and talked and that sort of thing? Could you have done this with a Survey Monkey survey?
We might have picked up some of the needs. You certainly, it might have taken longer with a Survey Monkey survey to pick up some of the needs. But I don't know that we'd have pieced it and stitched the understanding together in the same way. I don't know, because human life is complicated. You've got to know what to ask ahead of time. Yes. And then people have to take the effort to respond and write out a bunch of detail. And who's going to admit, oh, I wish society praised me more in a survey?
That doesn't sound like something that really comes out on a typical survey, or maybe even in the typical conversation that you would have with someone, because they're busy people. And, if you or I have ever taken a survey that someone gives us, and I'll use the word survey in this case, we want to get it over with.
Right.
It's for a hotel or a rental car, or, stay on the line for 3 seconds, after this call. And I don't want to do that, but okay, I'll do it reluctantly. But that's different than really understanding customer needs.
Right. Or, there's a lot of angles on here. So we advise our students over and over want to do surveys too quickly and we advise them to hold off and use that as a validation exercise if there's a larger population that's similar to the smaller one that they did. But we want them to, in person, you see certain things that you would miss on surveys. Very different illustration with some safety equipment in building construction. This is when there's still beams. If you've ever done a ropes course like Go Ape, where you're tied onto some kind of cable or rope, and it's like that with the workers, is that in case they fall, they don't really fall because they've got this harness and a link to a rope. But what happens is people still have accidents, even despite all the equipment there. And in finding out what really happens is that these workers, they've never died before, they've never fallen before, so they don't think it's going to happen this time either. And so they will not follow the safety protocols because they think I don't need it. That's for other people. And so finding a way, the students ended up finding a beautiful solution where the workers could both be tethered to a cable, and that the clasps crossed without ever untethering or unclipping. So hard without showing you a visual of exactly how this worked, but they thought of the engineering. In hindsight, the company said this was obvious. Nobody ever thought of it. But
which is always a great solution, sort of Occam's razor sort of thing too, which is the simplest solution, and sometimes staring us right in the face.
Yeah, but the trick was recognizing that these workers, they were too overconfident to follow safety. I mean, the safety equipment's there, it works, but people weren't following proper procedure because they felt like they were overconfident. Recognizing overconfidence,
which again is a human trait.
Yeah, and would you get that on a survey?
Right. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't write it as a question. Do you think you're how confident or overconfident are you of falling? You just wouldn't think of doing that. And it wouldn't come out even if you did ask it. So yeah, that's great. So we've got AI on one hand, we've got humanity and human traits in the other. And as long as humans are here, if AI doesn't actually replace us, which would be one of the highly unfortunate consequences of the technology, then we're going to be around, and it's going to be humans selling to humans, whether it's B2C or B2B. And I think it's really interesting because both of the examples that you gave are really B2B marketing. I mean, yes, you have an end user that drives that truck, but that truck is probably purchased. Sometimes it's purchased by an individual if they're an independent, but many times purchased by a company for those individuals. And in this case, probably if it's fancy, then an incentive, which trucking companies really need these days because it's hard to find people. And so and then the construction safety, same thing. You're selling it to a construction company. So let me pivot for a second back to what you do, on a day-to-day basis. And when I was introducing you, I mentioned, in addition to you being a faculty member, actually you have a chair in marketing and new products, but you also are the director of the Integrated Innovation Institute, III. What is that, and what does that do, and what is its mission, and how's that going?
Yeah. So Integrated Innovation Institute it's a market-focused center that trains elite innovators of what? Products and services. So around a university, there's lots of innovation. There's lots of art. We could think of sculptures. Well, that'd be innovation. We could think of technology or physics, the innovative ways to learn, gain new knowledge, and studies of atoms and
Sure.
works, etc. So innovation everywhere. Our portion, our niche is products and services.
So just to interrupt, is this cross-functional, and all the examples that you gave, like there are different parts of the university that are part of this, and your part is marketing new products?
It's cross-functional in that, what we actually do is we train innovators, meaning we do innovation education.
Okay.
And what are the chunks that come in? Design, business, and engineering, or technology, if you want it. Why those three areas? Well, a successful product or service, it does accomplish a function. It saves time. It does your taxes. It transports you somewhere. There's all sorts of function. But it also it's people. People use products and services. So that's the world of design. We can think of it as interaction design, interface design, service design, experience design, industrial design. It's people. And then thirdly, what you need to be economically viable. You could be a not-for-profit. You got to be economically viable, just because whatever value you're creating, you want to keep doing it. So you've got to have the finances working out where you can stay alive and keep producing that product or performing that service, et cetera. So those are the three areas. We cross-train our students. We have graduate education currently, and we cross-train our students in design, business, and engineering, and bring students from those disciplines. They learn the others, and they learn process of innovation, application, and then they go out and they are product managers, or they might be engineers who think more broadly and bring in more skills.
That's fantastic. It does a student that is an undergrad, if they're in high school and they're applying to Carnegie Mellon, would they sort of see this and immediately think, I want to be part of that coming in? Or is it something that they typically learn about while they're there and then sort of join up somehow? How does that work from a sort of like curriculum or major or any of that kind of thing?
Right. Well, most of our students come from universities other than Carnegie Mellon. We do have some who stick around and continue. But we pull for students from all over the world.
And this is master's level then?
This is master's level.
For the Integrated Innovation Institute. Okay.
And so we've got two versions of this, we have I should also talk about our Silicon Valley campus as well, but we'll get to that in a moment. We have a degree in Pittsburgh, which I've been, design, business, and engineering. It's innovation in general. That's an in-person program. The students generally come about after a couple of years of working. They come back to school and they spend either 1 year or a year and a half to get their master's degree. We also have an online version, and this is a stackable certificates, but a master's degree. Here, our average age is around 34. So we have students in their 50s, students in their 20s, but these are significantly more experienced students. The nice thing about this version online is partly you don't have to stop your job. You can continue working full time.
Yeah, that's great. Very flexible. I think we're obviously seeing more of that, but we will see more of that for sure.
Yeah, and partly we created chunks of material where some people want just the technology content. Some people want just the design research content. Others want the business content. So we've got chunks you could take that chunk and get a certificate. And by the way, these are real classes. It's real work. It's 10 hours a week per class of effort on your part. But it ends up being real credit from a real university, from a prestigious university. So students might just decide, I want just this certificate. That's all I need for my skill set, my job, and continue on. Others start to accumulate these certificates and they end up with a master's degree from the university. So that program is, it's largely domestic because of time zones. We teach in the evening, or California is just after work.
Makes sense.
Either program are ways to get that degree.
That sounds tremendous. For this stackable certificate program, what's the easiest way for somebody to find information about that and the different classes and that sort of thing? If they're listening and they're saying, hey, that might be interesting. Is there a URL that's easy to get to?
There is. So first thought is it's cmu.edu. So that's Carnegie Mellon, all right, .edu.
Yep.
So cmu.edu/III. So that'll get you to there. And then you'll see a link to online. So there you go.
Perfect. I love it. That's great. Well, do you have any plans to have an AI for marketing class?
We do. We call it smart systems.
Interesting. Say more about that.
So with all of our classes, we've been around for a long time. And as new capabilities emerge in the world, were right there teaching it. I think we had one of the first IoT classes in the world. And this was a number of years ago. But our smart system, what we're all about is somebody else is developing the technologies, the sensors, the algorithms. We're applying them. And so what we're teaching our students is, what is it? What are the capabilities? What are its limitations? How is it starting to be used? How could you use it? Where is this headed? Those are the kinds of things that we're covering in our classes. So our smart systems class is making our students aware and excited about how to actually use AI embedded in products and services.
That's outstanding. That's great. So, I mean, obviously, if you're listening and you want to be on the cutting edge, check all this out. And Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon are really known for this kind of high technology, forward-thinking businesses. One that I came in contact with years ago was called Seegrid, that has sort of self-driving vehicles. In the very early days, I went and visited with them and saw, sort of a prototype version running around their lab. But I introduced them to a subsidiary that I worked for called Heister Yale, which makes forklift trucks. And lo and behold, now they're self-driving forklift trucks, I believe, using that Seegrid technology. And the name, it took me a while to understand. I didn't really think about it. I'm like, I didn't put two and two together, but the name came Seegrid, because basically it had all these cameras and a grid that the cameras would see technically. That's actually a way for humans to visually understand what a machine might do. But that's really the basis of the technology, and it's just gotten better and better, and will continue to do so.
Incidentally, one of my faculty members works. She's the design principal at Seegrid. She teaches in both the online and in the in-person program. So
there you go.
We like to leverage people who really know the business, but also are outstanding.
Okay,
teachers.
well, I didn't even know that connection. That's great. Small world. All right. Well, Peter, this has been a really fun conversation. We've talked about new things and foundational things, and some really practical things that are going on at the Tepper School of Business. And I thank you for joining us in our time, and it was really a pleasure.
Likewise, Dave. I enjoyed getting to visit with you today.
Thank you. Well, everybody, thanks for joining, and you've been listening to the B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast, and we will be back with another version, and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the one and only B2B Marketing and Sales Podcast, the source for B2B marketing and sales insight. If you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to subscribe and leave these old guys a 5-star rating. Check the show notes for any links and contact information. You can always contact us by going to b2bmarketingsalespodcast.com. Thank you, and keep on marketing, keep on selling.